South Korea's presidential office is moving back to its former compound of Cheong Wa Dae, or the Blue House, one of President Lee Jae-myung's key campaign pledges. A filibuster by the main opposition People Power Party is underway at the National Assembly after the ruling Democratic Party introduced a bill to create a special tribunal for insurrection cases. Outbound shipments from South Korea rose in nearly 7% in early December, thanks to strong semiconductor demand. Hopes are high that the government's annual export target of $700 billion could be realized. After weeks of preparations, the presidential office is entering the final phase of its return to Cheong Wa Dae, the Blue House. The presidential press corps has also relocated, with live briefings taking place there for the first time in over 3 years. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yujin has our top story.
For the first time in years, cameras are getting a rare look inside the Yongsan presidential office, where workers are moving wrapped furniture out of the building. The destination? Cheong Wa Dae, also known as the Blue House. After more than 3.5 years, South Korea's top office is heading back to its former home, just behind Gyeongbokgung Palace in downtown Seoul.
The presidential office will now leave the Yongsan era behind and return to the Blue House, the place where the president originally was and belongs.
Returning to Cheong Wa Dae was one of President Lee's key campaign pledges.
청와대를 신속하게 좀 보수해서 그리로 다시 들어가는 게 제일 좋겠다.
He has argued that the compound is better equipped with established security, protocol, and diplomatic infrastructure, making it more cost-efficient and operationally effective. The previous Yoon Suk-yeol administration relocated the presidential office to the Defense Ministry compound in 2022, saying that Cheong Wa Dae symbolized an overly centralized imperial presidency distant from the public. Since August, Cheong Wa Dae has been closed to visitors, so it could undergo renovation work in preparation for the return. So what will the revived presidential compound look like? The layout itself remains largely unchanged. The main building houses the president's office and reception rooms. Yeonmin-gwan buildings 1 through 3 serve as offices for his aides. There is also the Yeonmin-gwan State Guest House, the Chunchu-gwan Press Center, and the presidential residence. What will change is how the space is used. President Lee plans to work primarily from Yeonmin-gwan rather than the main building to streamline communication and decision-making. The presidential residence, however, will not be used immediately as additional refurbishment is required. Most of the relocation is expected to be completed around Christmas, with President Lee likely to begin officially commuting to Cheong Wa Dae from his current residence in Hannam-dong toward the end of the year. The Lee administration says that moving back to the Blue House will not mean a return to its old image, which was often criticized as closed and authoritarian. Officials say they plan to expand online live streams of President Lee's official engagements, as well as minimize security restrictions around the area. And while access will be limited, the administration plans to reopen Cheong Wa Dae to visitors next year. Song Yujin, Arirang News.
Now at the National Assembly, the opposition People Power Party has launched a filibuster as the ruling Democratic Party pushes to pass a bill that seeks to set up a special tribunal dedicated to insurrection charges. Kim Do-yeon reports.
Tabled at last, the ruling Democratic Party introduced to the floor of the National Assembly on Monday a contentious bill to create a special tribunal for insurrection to deal with issues arising from the prosecution of former President Yoon Suk-yeol and his aides for their failed martial law bid. However, proceedings are stalled as the main opposition People Power Party has launched a filibuster to block its passage. The Democratic Party is adamant on passing the legislation to thoroughly punish those involved in the martial law declaration. They argue the current judicial leadership, specifically Supreme Court Chief Justice Cho Hee-dae, is biased, necessitating a special structure to ensure fair accountability. However, there were concerns over the bill's constitutionality when the idea was promulgated, but the DP claims that they have been resolved.
Discussing the future without clearing up the insurrection is like building a sandcastle. This revised bill removes unconstitutionality and danger. Above all, its strength lies in blocking the influence of Supreme Court Chief Justice Cheong Wa Dae as much as possible.
Under the revised bill, dedicated panels will be established at the Seoul Central District Court and Seoul High Court. To ensure the Chief Justice cannot intervene, the revision empowers a meeting of judges at each court to determine the tribunal's composition rather than court leadership. The bill also includes a grandfather clause allowing the former president's ongoing trial to remain with his current bench for the first ruling. The People Power Party immediately began a filibuster condemning the move as an anti-constitutional attempt to judge shop and seize control of the judiciary.
This is where impeachment motions passed 3 times, and the lifting of martial law passed. But what is happening now? The Assembly is denying the very Constitution it created, and is attempting to unilaterally pass unconstitutional bills.
The Democratic Party has already moved to terminate the filibuster, ensuring the debate concludes Tuesday morning. With the party's supermajority, the bill is effectively guaranteed to pass immediately thereafter. Enactment appears certain as well, with President Lee Jae-myung having already signaled his support for the special tribunal. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Separately, the Democratic Party on Monday agreed to a special counsel probe into allegations that the Unification Church bribed lawmakers across the aisle. The ruling party pledged a probe that leaves no stone unturned, calling for a sweeping review of the church's reported involvement in politics, including illegal donations and influence peddling linked to the 2022 presidential election. The People Power Party has welcomed the latest developments and proposed follow-up talks, while warning the probe must not serve as a political retaliation. The presidential office, for its part, urged for an impartial probe into the allegations regardless of political affiliation or status. South Korea's exports are on the rise, and December's latest figures are no exception. The upbeat numbers are fueling optimism for the country's economic outlook. Our Park Kwon-woo has the latest.
South Korea's exports for this month through December 20th reached a record high for the same period of any year due to strong chip shipments. According to data from the Korea Customs Service on Monday, outbound shipments totaled $43 billion, up 6.8% on year. The previous record was set last year when exports exceeded $40 billion, but that figure was surpassed once again in 2025. Semiconductors led the gains, jumping more than 40% on year, while wireless communication devices and computer peripherals also posted solid increases. By destination, exports to China and Vietnam rose overall, but the U.S., one of Korea's 3 major exporting countries, saw a shrink due to Washington's tariff policies. With exports continuing to rise, the industry ministry says the country is likely to exceed the government's annual target of $700 billion, which would mark the highest export total ever for South Korea. As of December 20th, exports had already surpassed $683 billion, leaving just around $16 billion more to meet the goal. Last year, Korea recorded more than $21 billion in exports during the final 11 days of December, and with exports again hitting record highs, similar momentum is expected this year. One expert says exceeding the target would be significant, but warns there are risks to sustaining the momentum.
Questionable whether we will still be able to keep up this export momentum next year because we're not sure if the AI investments will continue and Korea will be hit with tariffs next year, even though it was less than what we expected at the beginning of 2025.
The expert also stressed the importance of diversifying Korea's trading partners.
Need to strengthen its trading relationship with countries other than the United States. United States, I think, will be, for the near future, they will try to maintain their current trade barriers. So Korea needs to reach out and expand exports with other countries.
But he added that strengthening the domestic economy is equally important, noting that most job creation and economic growth stem from within the country. A balance, he says, will be key to sustaining long-term growth. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
The costly ramifications of a weaker Korean currency are becoming tangible for ordinary consumers here of products like beef and coffee. Park Jun-an explains.
The effects of the weakening Korean won are beginning to show in the costs of imports, as while year-on-year import prices fell by more than 2% on a contractual currency basis, they rose by over 2% when calculated in Korean won. According to the Bank of Korea Economic Statistics System on Sunday, the import price index for November shows that with 2020 set as 100, import prices on a contractual currency basis rose by just over 18% as of November 2025. However, when those same price changes are converted into Korean won, the increase jumps to nearly 42%. This widening gap highlights how exchange rate movements add pressure to Korea's import costs. When looking at the $1 exchange rate, the amount of won needed to buy $1 now stands at around 1,481. That marks an increase of 7.63% over the past 6 months and a rise of 34.3% over the past 5 years. South Korea imports nearly 100% of key staples such as coffee, corn, wheat, and soybeans, making it vulnerable to currency fluctuations. Notably, the import price index for coffee stood at 379.71 in won terms last month, compared with 307.12 in dollar terms, underscoring how the weak won amplifies costs. Over the past 5 years, dollar-based coffee prices have tripled due to climate-driven supply shortages, but in won terms, they have nearly quadrupled, rising nearly 280% since 2020. Beef has also risen by over 60% in the same period, compared to an increase of around 30% on a contractual currency basis.
Even when buying the same amount, imports inevitably cost more when the exchange rate rises, pushing up import prices and ultimately fueling inflation. Compared with other G7 countries, South Korea is more sensitive to exchange rate swings and raw material price increases due to its heavy reliance on imports.
Meanwhile, the Bank of Korea's analysis shows that if the $1 rate persists around the 1,471 level, inflation could exceed its 2.1% forecast and rise to the mid-2% range. 박준환, 아리랑 뉴스.
Seoul and Moscow recently held undisclosed talks on North Korea issues, according to sources. Russia, however, denied that such talks took place. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
South Korea and Russia reportedly held closed-door talks in Moscow recently, tapping on North Korea-related issues. According to sources on Sunday, a South Korean ministry official in charge of dealing with the North's nuclear issues made a secret visit to Moscow, where they met with their Russian counterparts in charge of related matters, including Oleg Burmistrov, Russia's special envoy for North Korea nuclear issues. Their meeting follows a September meeting in New York between the two countries' top diplomats, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Reports say Seoul could have asked Moscow to play a constructive role in ensuring peace on the Korean peninsula, given Russia's close ties with the regime. One expert, however, says Russia's stance on the regime's nuclear issues is quite firm and it would be hard to change.
Russia realistically believes North Korea's nuclear weapons do exist, and that is something that must be acknowledged. From Moscow's view, the North Korea nuclear issue should be recognized as a reality first before moving on to the next step. Otherwise, it is impossible to continue with dialogue.
In fact, Russia has denied that there were any secret talks between Seoul and Moscow. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said in a statement that the opponents of Russia-North Korea cooperation have not abandoned futile attempts to undermine their strategic partnership. She further added that Russia was not holding any consultations with South Korea, nor discussed matters affecting inter-Korean relations, particularly North Korea nuclear issues, which she claimed did not exist for Russia. Given that the communication between the two countries has remained frozen for some time, the expert noted that undisclosed talks between Seoul and Moscow may be considered a step forward, yet how the two sides will address North Korea issues remains to be seen. 김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korean mobile carrier SK Telecom is now facing mounting pressure after regulators ruled it should compensate millions of customers affected by a massive data breach. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more.
South Korea's Consumer Protection Agency has issued a ruling over a major SK Telecom data breach that exposed the SIM card information of 23 million subscribers last April, which triggered widespread disruption as users replaced SIMs. The Consumer Dispute Mediation Committee under the Korea Consumer Agency ruled that personal data had been leaked and that consumer harm had occurred, determining that SK Telecom bears responsibility for compensation. The ruling follows a collective mediation request filed in May by 58 affected subscribers. After 3 rounds of deliberations, the committee approved a compensation proposal worth 100,000 Korean won, just under $68 per person. Compensation will not be paid in cash. Instead, if the compensation plan goes ahead, subscribers will receive a discount of about $30 on mobile service fees, along with an equal amount in points usable at affiliated partner stores, including convenience stores and bakeries. The committee added that SK Telecom's previously offered 50% discount on August mobile service fees will be deducted from the total compensation amount. It also emphasized that the ruling does not constitute a legal determination of liability under privacy laws, but is aimed at prioritizing swift consumer relief following the data breach. If SK Telecom accepts the mediation proposal, it will carry the same legal effect as a court settlement. The company has 15 days from receiving the decision to notify the committee whether it will accept the terms. The committee has also stated that, if accepted, the compensation plan would apply to not only the 58 applicants, but to all 23 million subscribers affected by the data leak. If fully implemented, the total compensation could reach above $1.5 billion. SK Telecom said it will carefully review the decision before making a final determination. The company has already taken follow-up measures, including SIM replacements for all subscribers and a separate customer compensation package, and was fined more than $91 million by the Personal Information Protection Commission. With the mediation ruling potentially adding another $1 trillion level financial burden, SK Telecom's decision is being closely watched. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korea's first commercial orbital rocket, the Hanbit Nano, will lift off from Brazil this week following 3 delays. Korean space startup InnoSpace announced a new launch plan on Monday. The rocket will be launched from Alcantara Space Center in Brazil at 3:45 p.m. Monday local time. Now that is 3:45 a.m. Tuesday Korea Standard Time. At this time, weather conditions could be a factor due to rain in the forecast, while Brazil currently in its rainy season. The launch has been postponed 3 times due to abnormal avionics signals, a cooling system issue, and a fuel tank problem. The mission, called Spaceport, aims to place 8 payloads into a 300-kilometer orbit, including 5 small satellites from Brazil and India and 3 experimental devices. It is time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. So for that, we have our sports editor, Paul Neitz, joining us in the studio. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you. Hello.
Paul, where better to start than with yet another title for badminton superstar An Se-young, right?
Right. Title number 11 of the year for An Se-young. Now, this ties the record for any athlete in this sport, male or female. Now, An's most recent success came on Sunday in China in the BWF World Tour Finals, beating her longtime rival Wang Ji of China 2-1, 21-13, 18-21, 21-10. Anne reached 12 finals in 15 World Tour events this season. Her only loss came against Akane Yamaguchi of Japan at the Korea Open in September. Now, the World Tour finals are open only to the top 8 from the World Tour season. This meant that Korean duo Kim Won-ho and So Sung-jae were also involved, and it was a final win for them too, beating Liang Wei-keng and Wang Chang of China 2-0, 21-19, 21-14. Much like An Se-young, this was their 11th title of the year, and for So Sung-jae, including individual titles, it was his 12th, beating a record that had stood for 37 years.
Incredible achievements. And now moving on to football, I believe there will be a major shakeup to the men's international calendar in Asia, right?
Yeah, right. The Asian Football Confederation has announced that it will launch a Nations League. On Sunday, the AFC announced that from 2029, there'll be a similar tournament to the European Nations League, effectively replacing friendly matches to help boost the level of football in the region. It's often hard for national teams in Asia to find opponents that are suitable during FIFA match windows, and matches can be expensive and hard to organise. The Nations League will allow teams to play against similarly ranked sides, with groups sorted into tiers with a promotion and relegation system. Meanwhile, South Korean national team star Lee Kang-in has been ruled out for several weeks due to a left thigh injury, according to his club PSG. The injury was sustained in PSG's FIFA Intercontinental Cup final win in Qatar against Flamengo on December 17th.
All right, so now moving on to baseball. It seems the KBO season only just ended, but already we're looking at the 2026 season already, right?
Right, and we now know that the new season will begin on March 28th.
Okay.
All 5 games will start at 2 p.m, including defending champions LG Twins at home to KT Wiz. Each team will play 144 games, but the number of home games and away games can differ. Since 2023, the teams that had 73 home games one season will have 73 away games the next. This year, the Twins, the Lions, the Dinos, the Tigers and the Heroes will have 73 home games and 71 away. There are some new things that have been launched. The pitch clock will lose 2 seconds. This means that pitchers will have to act within 18 seconds with the bases empty and 23 with runners on. The aim is to speed the game up. Now, the idea worked last year with games ending 8 minutes faster than the year before.
And Paul, last but not least, it looks like Korea will have another superstar in Major League Baseball. Tell us more.
Right, so 29-year-old infielder Song Sung-moon is heading to the San Diego Padres from the Kiwoom Heroes. According to Yonhap News, on Monday, Song has flown to the US to sign, but details of his contract have not yet been made public, nor has the club confirmed the deal. But reports began to surface on Friday, with the negotiation window due to close at 5 p.m. US Eastern Time on Sunday.
Just in the nick of time then. Paul, thanks for coming in tonight, as always.
Thank you.
Cold winds started picking up yesterday, and by this morning, which is Dongji, the winter solstice, the cold became fierce. The morning temperature dropped to minus 5.9 degrees Celsius in Seoul, returning to around the seasonal average. No major cold spells are expected through Wednesday. Starting tomorrow afternoon, rain will arrive in many parts of the country. Showers will begin tomorrow afternoon in the center parts of the country, the Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island, then spread nationwide by nighttime. Most of this rain will stop by Wednesday morning, which is Christmas Eve. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at minus 1 degree, Daejeon and Gyeongju at minus 2 degrees. Daily highs will rise up to 6 degrees in Seoul, 14 degrees in Gyeongju. On Thursday, Christmas Day, rain or snow could fall along the west coast of the Jeollado provinces. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.